When it comes to the Appalachian Mountains, the Smokey Mountains, it was a very dark and sinister experience for me. It was a dark experience, but at the same time, it was a very deep experience. A very deep and spiritual experience. I learned a lot from those ancient mountains they call the Smokey Mountains. When I went deep into the heart of Appalachia, the wisdom of Appalachia went deep into the heart of my soul. That part of the Appalachian Trail that I attempted to hike in the Smokies, that was actually the trail that gave me a very visual representation of the path of death. Because that hiking path felt like a path of death. When I was hiking there, I felt like I was hiking towards my death. I felt like I was going to die if I go any further. And sadly, the Western world, has been going further and further down a path of death for years and years, in fact decades now. Symbolically, the West has been going down a path of death. And one example of that, of what I'm talking about, relates to sexuality. The sexual depravity, sexual degeneracy that has become so widespread throughout Western society today. The misuse of sexual energy. I mean, the gods gave us the power of sexual energy to contribute to their cosmic creation, to create life or sexually transmute the energy to contribute to life and creation itself. And when sexual energy is misused, it invokes death. When you misuse this power that is given to you by the gods, sexual energy, when you misuse that power, instead of creating life, you create death. You invoke death. You start to summon the energy of death. You start to spread the foul energy of death into the world around you. And you start to embody it more and more. The more you misuse it, the more you start to embody the energy of death. And today I see that the energy of death is widespread throughout the world today. The reason why certain areas of society, especially here in the West, are deteriorating is because of the misuse of sexual energy. Because everything in life stems from its root. And at the root of everything is sexuality. This power that we have, which was given to us by the gods. Or by God if you are a Christian. But, regardless of what religion you are, it does not matter. When you misuse sexual energy, you create death instead. And that's what I'm seeing in the world today. The presence of death is becoming more and more widespread. The world is starting to look more and more and more like that sinister path of death that I was trying to hike on in Appalachia. And that's not good. I mean, that path, that trail, that part of the Appalachian Trail, taught me a lot. It was a deep experience. But it can be a sinister place if you're not spiritually prepared for it. Because I wasn't spiritually prepared. I didn't know what I was getting into. But overall, it's one way to connect with nature, because those forests and those mountains in southern Appalachia, they can really teach you a lot. And to me, they served as a very visual and literal representation of what the path of death looks like. A path that so many people are on today. And some people don't even realize they're on the path of death. They may not even realize that, they're going down this path and eventually it's going to lead to their spiritual death. Why do so many people feel dead inside today? Why do some people feel so dead inside? Because they're on the path of death. If you feel dead inside, you don't feel alive, right? You're not on the path of life. You're on the path of death. Those are the two paths in life. There's the path of life. And there's the path of death, both of which stem from that ancient tree, which is called the tree of life and death, which is the same exact tree that appears in the first story of the Bible, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. It's the same tree. The tree of life and death is also the tree of knowledge of good and evil. The path of life, the path of death. The tree of knowledge of good and evil. Because one path is synonymous with what is ultimately good, which is life and creation. And the other path is synonymous with what is ultimately evil. Death. The path of death. These are the two paths. And they all stem from that ancient tree. And that tree, the tree of life and death. It appears in the Norse myths. It appears in all the other forms of European paganism. It appears throughout many of the world's religions and religious folklore and spiritual folklore and spiritual traditions. You know, this power, sexual energy, is not to be misused. When you misuse it, life punishes you. The gods punish you. Nature punishes you by putting you on the path of death. When you engage in sexual depravity, how do you feel afterwards? When you engage in a sexually degenerate behavior, how do you feel afterwards? How do you feel for the next day? You feel drained, don't you? You don't feel alive. You might have felt alive in the moment. Now you don't, because you just spilled your seed all over the place. You just murdered that feeling of bliss that you had just a few seconds ago. And now it's going to take you a day, maybe 2 days, to feel okay again. That's what happens when you succumb to your lusts, when you misuse the power of sexual energy, the power that was given to us by the gods in order to contribute to this cosmic creation that started with them. In the beginning, God created life. And if we are to become more than just mere animals, and to become like gods in some ways, to be closer to their level, then we must use the power they give us, sexual and virilic energy, the right way, which is to create. You use sexual energy to create, whether that means to create life literally via procreation, or whether it is to transmute the energy and contribute to life itself with your own creations, whether that is musical creations, artistic creations, or etc., etc. Use the power that you were given for its intended purpose, which is to create life or to contribute to life. Because when you create life, you embark upon the path of life. And when you die, your soul continues to live on. And I'm not just talking about going to some afterlife, going to heaven or Valhalla, etc. But what I also mean is that your soul lives on because your soul is remembered, because your contribution to life was that large, was that colossal. Use that sexual power the right way for the purpose of creating life, and life will bless you, and your soul will live on after you die. These are some of the realizations that I came to after I hiked in Appalachia. You see, it was a dark experience when I went in there, into that forest, but I think it was totally worth it. It is teaching me so much and so much about life and death. When I was presented with the path of death, all of a sudden, I realized how beautiful the path of life is. Anyway, I could go on for hours, but I just thought I would share this because I see the world moving down the path of death, and that's something that is very bleak, and it's something that I don't think it's in the best interest of anybody. Anyway, long live the Smokey Mountains.